Hi, I'm Simone Leigh, and I'm the creator of the Free People's Medical Clinic, which is a project that I installed in Brooklyn last fall with Creative Time. I normally have a object-based practice. I'm a studio artist. I make video and sculpture. I describe my work as an ongoing exploration of Black female subjectivity. And Black women are the primary audience for my work. This is a still of a video that I made with Chitra Ganesh. I work in an autoethnographic mode. I think of Black women as a kind of material culture. And issues that often come up are labor, authorship, women as containers of knowledge, and women as containers of trauma. So when I was asked to make something live, it made sense to me to focus on the work or the legacy of Black nurses. There are many antecedents for the Free People's Medical Clinic, but I wanted to talk about two. These are images of the Black Panther Party's initiative, which was also called the Free People's Medical Clinic. In large part, our work was a recreation of this practice. These clinics were established across the United States in the 60s and 70s. And they had a dual purpose to bring free health care to the community and also to advocate about medical injustice. And in this example, they focused on sickle cell anemia, which is specific to, it's a genetic disease that's specific to African Americans. These are some more images from their clinics. This is another antecedent to the clinic. This is the headquarters of the United Order of Tents. The Tents are a secret society of Black nurses that have been organized since 1861, and they've operated continuously since then in secret, and they do now. This is their New York headquarters, and it's about 3 blocks from where we established our clinic. They have headquarters across the United States. In the 50s, they grew to 50,000 members. And they gather and they do good works. Now I'm going to break from these examples of self-sufficiency and self-love. This is a spectacle of the death of a Black woman in a waiting room in Kings County Hospital in Brooklyn in 2008. So this is an example of the state of medical care. As recently as then, this is before Obamacare. After losing her job, Esmond Green became despondent. She migrated from Jamaica and she was taking care of her family. So she tried to check herself into the Kings County Hospital and waited there for 24 hours and didn't receive any help, and then she collapsed and died. And the reason why you're seeing the surveillance footage is because she laid there for 45 minutes before they did anything. The New York Times wrote about this, and they had a line in the passage that said, "Waiting may have killed her." And I wanted to make this point. I'm not a public health expert, I'm an artist, but I do think that one of the major causes of death for Black women is obedience. This is Josephine English. We established our clinic in her former home, which is now called the Stuyvesant Mansion. And she's going to be introduced in the video I play now, but I just wanted you to see her lovely face. This is Indira Cruz, who's going to introduce you, and then you'll see Charles Frembrough. And then finally, Karen Rose, who's an herbalist. Where's the volume?
So we're standing in the home of Dr. Josephine English. She was the first African-American OBGYN to have her own practice in New York. This is her home. It's owned by her family still, and it has had many incarnations since she lived here. It has been a community center, a senior center, and now the Free People's Medical Clinic.
The more we're in touch with ourselves, the more we already know what it is to heal us, what it takes to heal us. I grew up in Guyana, and one of my favorite things was to listen to my grandmother's stories. And so folk stories have such a role in healing. And remember that medicine wasn't always written down for us, right? A lot of times medicine, especially in African American communities or indigenous African American communities, medicine was sung, right? We weren't allowed to write and read, so we sang to each other what medicine did. And that's how medicine was passed on. The songs themselves are medicine, as is the herb that was sung about. And so a lot of this work takes in those folk stories and those singing and remembering what it is to be in touch with self.
I've watched this several times, and I love how casually Karen Rose writes an epistemology about knowledge and form and self-care. I think it's at the core of many Black aesthetic cultures that the form, or sometimes what's described as the style in which knowledge is presented, is as important as the information that is shared. The song itself becomes the medicine. The clinic provided an array of services that were focused on preventative care. We offered gynecological services, or well woman care, massage. Over 100 people got acupuncture, folk dance, Catherine Dunham, yoga, Pilates, blood pressure screenings, HIV testing, and counseling and lectures on herbalism. There's a lack of empathy for Black pain in the US. A famous example is the Tuskegee Experiment, which was a clinical study conducted from 1932 to 1972, in which 600 Black men were infected with syphilis, and they were not treated, and they were not told that they had that disease. This is a well-known example. There's many other. But recently, when we were establishing the clinic, a couple of papers came out that talked about empathy as well, and they were saying that both Black and white people were less empathetic to Black people in pain. So it's at a point where Black people are actually less empathetic to their own selves. So to address this, this is Amy Cox, who's a cultural anthropologist, and she's also a dancer. She created a class called Afro-Centering, which was a core class. And in that way, we start to suture this disruption by reestablishing the connection between her body and herself. So it's not just a physical healing we were seeking to do, also something that would be emancipatory. Our waiting room area was an arena for performance, and we tried to satisfy the spectatorship with the waiting room. And we also created Waiting Room Magazine, where we had many, many scholars, including Sharifa Rose Pitts, contribute. It was designed by Nancy Kalelo Mutiti. And finally, this is a photograph that I took running around the park in Prospect Park on July 4th. This is where we are now. 2 weeks prior to this, a man killed 9 people at Bible study in the AME Church in South Carolina. And there's many important things about that church, but I wanted to say one thing. In 1834, it's one of the oldest, almost the oldest black church in the United States. And in 1834, all black churches were banned in South Carolina. So they met in secret and they went underground for 30 years. And finally, on the last day of the clinic, 2 of the original Black Panther Party members came to visit us. And they told me that when they had their clinic in Brownsville, which is like the adjacent neighborhood, they were so besieged by the police that the facade was covered with sandbags. Much more like a bunker than a hospital. And I'm suggesting that we are so besieged now, and perhaps we should, like the tents and like the AME church, go back underground. Thank you. Oh, sorry.
So thank you, Simone. A lot of the stuff you're doing seems to be about healing, one side, and also about brackets normal things. People who do their job, people who do ordinary stuff, brackets again. My question is, it might be tricky, but what happens when you find people who, because they are in so much pain, or because their normality is so painful, because they had such a bad experience, because they belong to a minority, or whatever reason, for whatever reason, or because of immigration or any other stuff. What happens when you find people who are reluctant to participate in this project, or when you find people who are reluctant to be healed? I think that there's a problem with audio, but it's already solved. Did you get the question, or?
How do I address it when people are reluctant to being healed?
Well, I mean, people who don't want to take part, who don't want to be there, people who have suffered maybe so much.
Well, I do find it difficult. I did find it difficult to do something that had never happened before. But one of the things that we did was have several community meetings, and we had a community tea to explain what we were doing and why we were in the community. And we also did not bring anything in the community that wasn't already there. So the acupuncturists and all the practitioners were all from the community already working there. So it wasn't like we helicoptered down. We were just sort of reorganizing what was already happening in the space. It was really more like revealing, like opening a door of what was happening already.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.